Welcome to a presentation that outlines how Linewize is helping schools succeed with digital learning. Linewize is dedicated to building network access management tools that help schools navigate the transition to digital learning, modern learning environments, and BYOD. The question we raise is, are we teachers or jailers? And that what we see in IT and education is that often IT is actually impeding education rather than enabling it. And this is because existing telco vendors take corporate solutions and shoehorn them into education environments. And we find that they don't fit well either from a functionality or a price perspective. And also, the question being, are we teachers or jailers? And that these products take a jailer mentality and they are designed for corporate environments and to prevent access to non-work related material for employees. And what we believe is that we really need to take a different approach to this and take an educational approach and really focus on how can we build tools that help educate digital citizenship through transparency and collaboration. And what we've found in schools is there's a whole lot of things that you need IT to support that often is incredibly difficult or confusing. So, around BYOD, how do you support BYOD in a touchless environment? Often you have to have a lot of admin overhead to support these devices. You have to capture MAC addresses, you have to tie them to users, you have to identify IP addresses. So supporting BYOD is very, very challenging. If there is an incident involving inappropriate content, how do you find out who is involved, how widespread this is? Often schools have got no information or no easily accessible information to answer these questions. And also if you have your filtering getting in the way of your lesson where you need to get to a particular website and your default internet filtering is blocking access to that site, it's very difficult to change or time consuming to change access. And also with the changing nature of the internet and all these applications becoming popular on mobile devices, how do you identify how the network is being used and how do you respond to that? So we believe all these things should be easy, but we've found that often they're not. And I guess you look at it from the Chinese curse perspective, may you live in interesting times. Well, currently we really do live in interesting times in that we're facing an unprecedented amount of change in the educational landscape. We have bring your own device, modern learning environments, we have digital learning, blended learning. We have a real change in how we approach the pedagogy of teaching students with the change in these tools. And really you have to use the tools of the day to serve the students and their educational outcomes. But often trying to solve these challenges introduced by these changes involves really complex, really expensive and often disruptive upgrades. And often what we find is these corporate solutions are really poor fitting in educational environments. They don't fit from a cost perspective and they don't fit from a functionality perspective. And again, these products are built by IT engineers for IT engineers, and schools really have an inability to self-manage this technology. You're reliant on an external resource to come and do what is often very simple tasks such as onboarding a BYOD device. So at Linewize, we're really focused on solving these problems by building the right tools to resolve them. We're really focused on allowing schools to self-manage user and content access and to be able to do that from a very simple web-based interface that anybody can manage without the need to be an IT expert. We're focused on building solutions for schools, not for corporates, and around sharing the duty of care, and that often the principle is where the buck stops as far as, is this network safe and appropriate for my students? And often there's not enough information really available to make that decision on, whereas here we can share this duty of care by allowing the principal to have visibility over the websites and traffic that staff and teachers generate, and be alerted if a teacher is trying to access inappropriate material. And in the same way, we can give teachers visibility over their students and alert them should one of their students be trying to access inappropriate material. And what we find is by sharing that duty of care, it enables teachers to have immediate and specific conversations with students to say, hey, Johnny, Pornhub is not appropriate on the school network. Could you please desist and refrain from that kind of behaviour? We can also use our technology to identify where e-learning is flourishing, where a wide variety of online resources are being used throughout the day, and students are taking a very self-learning approach to things, compared to where e-learning is struggling, where there's a very narrow pattern of online resource use and used very sporadically through the day and taking a very directive approach. And where it is struggling, we can use this information to identify which teachers may need PLD and additional training to cope in this very, very different environment. And then going forward, we can also share this knowledge. So if I'm a teacher, we can publish the top 10 apps used to teach maths in New Zealand schools, and then that teacher can go to that list and say, Mathletics, that's an interesting resource. Connect me with another teacher in a local school who's an expert on that, and then they can share best practice. And that teacher may say, well, it's a great product, but if I had my time again, I might look at this one because it's better or better suited for reasons X, Y, and Z. So hopefully that gives a bit of an overview and introduction to what we're focused on here at Linewize. So how do we go about doing this? Well, what we do is we combine network appliances. So this is commodity OEM hardware that we tie or match to your school's internet connection speed, and we combine that with a cloud management system. And at Linewize, we have developed the embedded firewall that runs on the network appliances and all the cloud management technology. And this combination of network security appliance and cloud management allows us to essentially build solutions which are tailored specifically for schools. In your school IT environment, the way we typically approach provisioning the service is that you'll have your existing firewall connecting you to the internet and doing your firewalling, so preventing inappropriate access coming in from the outside world. And then that'll be connected to your main switch, which will run off to all your wireless access points, your fixed infrastructure, your PCs, your servers, your printers, and so forth. We provide the school an appliance as part of the service, so there's no upfront cost to the school for this. And that appliance is installed between the existing firewall and the main switch. And because we're sitting on the network at this point, we can see everything on the network and control it as well. And from that, we provision our Surfwise service. In addition, a number of schools choose to subscribe to our Edgewise service, which is a fully cloud-managed firewall, which is essentially on feature parity with the kind of products you would get from Cisco or SonicWall or FortiGate. And from that provisioning, we can provide network authentication, so identifying who is on your network. We provide full visibility over the use of your internet from a device and user granularity perspective. And we also provide content filtering, which is specific based on the groups that the user belongs to. And we also provide classroom tools to help teachers manage this new environment in the classroom. In regards to network access, a common approach is using a captive portal. So this is one of the options we provide. So when someone sits down or brings a device onto the network, they're asked to log in. They would put their existing username and password in, and then they would be identified as being a valid user and allowed on the network and filtered according to the groups they belong to. The way we identify them as a valid user is by integrating with the existing directory services on site. So we do Active Directory integration for those schools which are using a Microsoft domain controller. We integrate via OpenLDAP with eDirectory, SmartNet servers as well. So if you're a primary school using a SmartNet server, this is a very straightforward solution to integrate. We support SAML SSO and Windows WMI as well. So if you're logging in using your Windows username and password on a Windows machine, there is no secondary captive portal. We can immediately identify through WMI events that this user has logged on to this device and therefore record their traffic against that user. We also provide Google integration, which is quite unique in that removes the need for an on-site domain controller completely, in that we can authenticate students using their existing Google username and address against Google's OpenAuth API in the cloud, identify they're a valid user, and then allow schools to filter what they can and can't access based on the Google groups they belong to. Of course, this also works for schools going down the Windows 365 route as well. And we also hook into wireless protocols via 802.1.x, so if you're using a Radius server and your wireless network to do authentication against a directory service, we can hook into that and identify when users are using that to log in and record their traffic against that device. So a quick overview of the kinds of integration. So here's the WI integration. If you sit down on a Windows PC, you'll log in using your existing username and password. You'll go straight onto that computer and can access the internet. We will identify that via the WMI event and attribute any further browsing to your account, and also filter any traffic based on the Active Directory groups that that user belongs to. We support permanent association, so often it's quite frustrating have to continually log in to networks. So here, when a teacher brings their device to school or logs in on their staff laptop, they are given the option to save their device based on the fact that they're a member of the teachers group, and from that point on, that device is permanently associated to that teacher, so they don't have to continually log in. Google integration. So say a child brings their new device that they have received for their birthday onto the school network. They'll connect to the Wi-Fi network. They will be presented a captive portal screen asking them to sign in with Google. So they can click on that button, and then you'll see the usual Google permissions page asking you to allow Linewize to access your account criteria. And from that, we can identify that the student is a valid user, the groups they belong to, and filter them accordingly. In addition, we look after guest access. So in the situation where you've got a group of fellow teachers arriving at school and they need temporary wireless access, the receptionist can provide a guest token which they can use to log in, and they can also specify an expiry time. So if those teachers are there for 2 hours, they can be given 2 hours of internet access, and they can log in using this guest token by clicking the login as guest button, putting the token in there, and then connecting to the network. And after 2 hours, that access would expire. In the same way, a student teacher who is present on site for a month can use their token to log in to any device on the network, a fixed PC in the library, their personal devices, or shared mobile devices using that token, and after 1 month, their access would expire. Where school environments differ dramatically from business environments is the number of shared devices that are in use. And this is a really challenging proposition to solve elegantly. So we've done a lot of work focusing on how to solve these problems. We allow schools to permanently associate a device to a room or a pod. We can provide restricted access, so if a year 0 to 3 picks up that tablet, or iPad or Chromebook, then their access is considerably more tied down than an older student who would be able to log in on that device using their Google username and password, and being an older student have more access to a wider range of content. We can have timeouts automatically set based on idle or from elapsed time, so that after 45 minutes students must re-authenticate on that device. And we also support a forced logout schedule, which you can tie into your school timetable so that at the end of every lesson the temporary logins are flushed across all these shared devices. And that means that a student can't pick up a device which someone has forgotten to log out of and then use their email account or do other inappropriate things with that device. And for the younger children that don't have accounts, we have an avatar-based login for year 0 to 3. So here, the year 0 to 3 children, when they pick up a shared device, they can click on a picture of their teacher and they will have access that is appropriate for that class. One of the key areas where Linewize is dramatically different than other solutions is in the visibility. And we provide exceptional visibility over the internet usage of devices on your network and the browsing history of every user on that network. This page shows the dashboard at Cashmere Primary School. You can see your internet traffic over the past time period, in this case 30 days. You can see the current active users and active devices on the network. You can click on that and drill down and actually see exactly which device or which user has been visiting what sites or using particular applications. You can see your top network users, the top devices, the top application types, and the top websites. So it gives you an overview. The story behind these screenshots is that at Cashmere Primary School, for the Year 7 students, they did a music exploration class and introduced Spotify. And of course, the Year 7s thought, wow, Spotify, this is so cool. And what we suddenly saw after that is that the Spotify traffic suddenly became popular. So here by the black dot, you can see Spotify traffic is suddenly registering as a significant consumer of bandwidth on that network. So in this case, if you click on Spotify, you'll drill down and you'll be shown the users which are using the Spotify service. And you can see here on the 30th of March, a particular user streamed almost 0.5 terabyte of Spotify music. So they're likely downloading music and caching it on their device for listening to offline. And here, if you click on that user, then you can have the granularity to drill down to a day for that user, for Spotify. You can see that from 8:30 in the morning through to 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they leave school, they're torrenting music for the entire day, which is fine, but what's not fine is that will cause contention for other e-learning activities. So your fixed internet connection will really start to struggle with these bandwidth-intensive applications. So Linewize provides you a way to identify how the bandwidth is being used and identify which applications are consuming your bandwidth and then respond to that from a position of knowledge. We, of course, look after inappropriate behavior. So from the violations page, you can see the users which have attempted to access inappropriate content. You can see the websites that have been accessed or attempted to be accessed. So here, MILFbank or Pornhub. And if you click on those, you'll drill down and see which users are trying to get to those sites during the time period you have selected. And if you click on the user, you will see which sites that user has tried to access, right down to a date and time basis. So you get full visibility over inappropriate use. And with that, you can also share the duty of care. So as well as overall reports, it's very easy to set up group reports where for a particular teacher, so for example at Oakland School, a teacher there who is the teacher for room 11, by just adding their email address, choosing the group that they're responsible for and determining where they want weekly reports and filtering alerts, then that teacher will get a summary of the websites that their students use, and if one of their students is attempting to access inappropriate material, they will get an immediate alert which enables them to have that timely and specific conversation around addressing that behaviour. And what we see in schools is very quickly the behaviour changes to align with what the school would wish the online behaviour to be. And really to do this, half of the solution is a technology solution, the other half is an educational and a conversation-based approach to educate students what is appropriate and what is not as far as online content goes. We'll touch briefly on the cloud-managed firewall. So a number of schools choose to adopt Edgewise, which allows you to have full self-management over your firewalling should you wish that. So if you want to be able to immediately change port settings or VLANing or NATing or all the other technical networky kind of stuff, then Edgewise provides you an ideal opportunity to do that. So from the visibility side of things, it's really focused on using knowledge to inform the e-learning practice at the school. We've also provided a parental login, so if parents have concerns around how their child is using perhaps a BYOD device in the school environment, the school can choose to allow that parent a login to our parental portal and have visibility over what their child is doing on the network at school, and even alert them should their child try to access inappropriate material. So really focused on sharing this duty of care. What we've found is really by having this knowledge, you can have an evidence-based access policy approach and start with quite an open network and then respond to events as they occur. So if Spotify is degrading your internet connectivity, you can see that happening and then you can respond to it and choose to block Spotify outside lesson time. And what we find in taking this kind of approach to managing network access is you end up with a much more open network that doesn't get in the way of the educational outcomes you're looking to achieve. So it makes a really big difference in that you're actually being mindful and responsive to what's happening based on real activity, rather than traditionally the approach is to lock down everything you believe is inappropriate and then move away, walk away, throw the keys away. What we've found is that approach no longer serves students particularly well, in that application usage and internet usage and even the applications available are so fluid that you really have to take a more proactive approach in order to do the best service to your students. We've mentioned before the ability to quantify the uptake of e-learning. The other thing we can use this data to do is to identify or quantify the return on investment for SaaS products that schools choose to subscribe to. So if you're choosing to subscribe to Mathletics, with Linewize you can identify which teachers are using Mathletics, which students are using Mathletics, how often it's being used, and actually determine, are we using this product to the best of our ability, and are we getting a good return on the amount of money we're spending on this particular SaaS product. We can also quantify the e-learning uptake. So, where e-learning is flourishing, where it's struggling, and use that to determine PLD application. Going forward, we are shortly releasing an app trend notification. So if you're aware of an application like Yik Yak, which is a social media platform which is anonymous and geofenced, so at a particular school, a student may write "Johnny smells of poo," and everyone within a 16-kilometre radius can see that and upvote it and respond to it. And obviously this is a fantastic platform for bullying, given the anonymous nature of it. So when such applications become popular across a range of student devices, we can inform the school of that, we can inform the teacher, and going forward we can even inform the parent, saying your child has installed Yik Yak and used inappropriately, it can yield these negative outcomes. So maybe you should have a conversation with your child and tell them, inform them around what appropriate use of such an application may be. We also surface behaviour to students, so a student can see how they're spending their time online, the usage of social media sites, gossip sites, and other non-educationally related material, and compare that to the average student behaviour in their class or in their year or their school. And if they are a considerable outlier as far as their online usage goes, they have the opportunity to reflect and think what that might be doing for my education. And we've talked about the ability to crowdsource this data, identify the most popular applications used to teach particular subjects in school, and share that information across teachers so we can connect them with other teachers who have already identified useful resources and use them and can share their knowledge with teachers who are interested in using them as well. And then moving on to content filtering. As far as the filtering goes, we do pretty well everything. So we do layer 7 application signatures. You can choose to block, allow, alert, or redirect based on a matching filter. We provide lists to the schools, and these are automatically updated every day, and we buy these lists in from list providers and collate them, and also pull in our crowdsourced feedback on whether the site is appropriately identified or not. Here is an example of the filtering policy list. So it's a very simple interface. Anybody can easily use and set filtering within the school. Here is a list of policies which the school has set up. So blocking content, explicit content, blocking advertising. You can turn these policies on and off by clicking enabled or not. You can choose to block for staff or students or whatever groups that are available in your directory server. If we drill down into the block all explicit policy, creating a policy is really straightforward. So you just choose to give it a name, what you want to do, in this case block websites and category, and here they have chosen the standard pawn list, which we provide and update every day, and you choose who it applies to. In this case it applies to everybody, and the action, which for this policy is block visits, present a blocked page, and record the attempt for alerting around inappropriate behaviour. Here is a more advanced policy. We're at Darfield High School, and here they've really focused on reducing blocking the bandwidth intensive applications such as gaming, torrenting illegal movies, copyright material piracy, also the streaming video sites such as Netflix and TVNZ On Demand, Sky Go, and the music streaming sites such as Spotify and Grooveshark. So here the school's taken a focus to preserve their internet connectivity by removing non-educational related streaming media so that the children pursuing educational related activities online won't be impeded by other people consuming network traffic for unrelated purposes. You can apply it to a particular part of the network very easily, and you can choose the members of group. So we pull in the groups from the directory server, and in this case this policy is applied to students at Darfield School. You can also choose time periods as well, and a number of our schools use this to schedule internet outages for particular classes, so that you can say if a class is having an exam on the 27th of September between 9 AM and midday, no internet access for this class due to exam conditions. So it's very easy to use, but it's very powerful and very flexible. And in this case, we're not interested in alerting around students trying to access these sites, so we're just blocking these sites. We're not bothering to alert teachers around the attempt to access these things. Then finally we have the classroom tools. So this is unique to Linewize. We don't know of any other solution which can do these kind of things. So what we've created here is my.linewize.net site, and as we know that this teacher has already authenticated themselves on this device, when this teacher goes to the my.linewize.net site, they are immediately greeted with a welcome Miss Susie Aitken. The system is configured to know which groups they have domain over, so Susie teaches room 7, and she can choose for 45 minutes, relax the filtering for my class, because we're teaching Greek classics and my students need access to the live.fr website so that they can see pictures of the Venus de Milo. And when a student tries to access the live.fr website, whereas by default that access to that website would have been blocked, as you can see by the block screen here, instead they temporarily can go through and access that online resource because in the context of the lesson it's appropriate. The teacher can also choose to block internet access for a set duration for their class, for perhaps they're having an exam condition or the internet has nothing to do with the current lesson plan, so let's just turn it off so we don't get students messaging each other or being distracted in other ways. So here, student trying to access Yik Yak, instead they are presented a page which says, "Hi Zoe Ball, access to the internet has been blocked by your teacher for the next 15 minutes. We can also use the mylinewize.net website to share online resources which are related to the lesson. So the teacher can post the URLs into the page here, and when a student goes to their mylinewize.net page, because they're already authenticated on that device, we will know that in this case it's Fred Dunstan, they're part of room 7, and the URLs the teacher has shared with the students are available on that web page, and they can click on them and go straight through to the websites which are shared by the teacher. In addition, the teacher could choose to restrict it, so essentially create a walled garden where for this lesson The approved sites are Mathletics and Wikipedia, and when they restrict it, there is an override code provided, which they could choose to write on the board. And so if a student is doing a project, they're trying to go to steampowered.com to grab a screenshot of a particular game for their project. Normally, they would be presented saying, "Hi John, access to the internet has been curated by your teacher. These are the sites that are approved. If you need to go somewhere else, please enter the override code," in which case this student does so. They can go outside the walled garden and grab that screenshot that they might want for their project. And in this case, the blocking is replaced by visibility. So the teacher can see on their device who is operating within their walled garden and who is outside of it. So you can understand what people are focused on during the lesson. So hopefully that gives you an overview of how Linewize is helping schools succeed with digital learning. We allow schools to augment their existing network with full network and content access control. So that means authentication, it means touchless BYOD support. You do not need to install SSL certificates on devices for this functionality to work. It provides you full visibility over network usage, which allows you to set your internet access policy from a position of knowledge and also have an audit trail should there be any untoward behavior occurring. And the system is designed to allow teachers without IT skills to gain self-management over user network and content access. And the system is extremely cost effective. So it starts at 50 cents per student per month. There is a minimum charge of $75 per month as we provide the hardware that enables the service. And as the school roll rises, the cost reduces. So the first 500 students are charged at 50 cents. Thereafter, the next 500 at 40 cents, the next 500 at 30 cents, and so forth. So this technology enables schools of very small roles to have a cost-effective way to access what would previously be enterprise-grade technology. And schools choosing to pay annually receive 1 month free. So we find this to be an extremely cost-effective way to support and succeed with e-learning and make sure that e-learning initiatives are well managed and well understood, and to do this in a way which is very non-disruptive and very feature-rich for the schools involved. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. And if you would like to contact us at info@linewize.com, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.